So by the time this video comes out, Skull Tweak is going to be a few weeks old, but this map is based off a map from Bloons Tower Defense 5 and it's also called Skull Tweak. And in today's video, I'm going to attempt to black border it, so sit back and enjoy while I read some Reddit stories and pop some balloons. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my friend's friend with a job referral? I'm a 34-year-old man, work as a staff software engineer at a tech company in Toronto. About a year ago, one of my close friends, Jake, became friends with a software engineer Ajit. I've met Ajit a few times at work gatherings, but only through Jake. We've never worked together, never hung out one-on-one, and I wouldn't say I know him particularly well. Recently, Ajit was laid off. Jake reached out and asked if I could refer him for some open positions at my company. The awkward part is that there actually are a few openings where I think Ajit would be a strong fit based on his experience and technical background. If I were judging purely on skills, I'd probably recommend that he at least get an interview. But I still declined. My reasoning is that a referral, especially for someone at my level, isn't just saying this person has the right technical qualifications, it's also me putting my reputation behind them. I'm effectively telling the hiring team that I trust this person's professionalism and judgment. The problem is that I don't know Ajit well enough to make that statement. Jake got annoyed when I explained this. He pointed out that years ago, one of my friends referred me for a job despite not knowing me particularly well. He also mentioned that I've referred people before. I told him that's true, but the people I've referred were either former coworkers or people I'd known long enough that I felt comfortable enough personally vouching for them. Another staff engineer referred a software engineer, Prakash. He was technically excellent, but after joining, he became a major HR problem and made several female coworkers uncomfortable and was awkward and creepy. Ever since then, I've been much more careful about attaching my name to people I don't know well. Jake thinks I'm being unfair because Ajit is qualified and recently lost his job. I think referrals are about more than technical skills, and I don't feel comfortable vouching for someone's character when I've only met them a handful of times. I know Ajit is single, and to me that is a bit of a risk factor, just how it was with Prakash. A little bit of a spoiler alert, this guy was deemed the jerk by the community, but I'm gonna play the devil's advocate here. I kinda understand where he's coming from, because you don't really know this guy too well, so you don't really want to put your reputation on the line if it's going to screw you over in the long run. But I also understand why he would be considered the jerk here. Because your friend's friend who you have met before and you should probably be able to get like a grasp of their character after a few meetings just lost their job. And it sounds like you've been in a similar situation before, so you would at least hope that you would be more empathetic to someone else who's in a similar position as you were. And whenever you were in that position, one of your friend's friends was willing to help you out even though they didn't know you that well. So like I said, I do understand where this person's coming from because I've been in a similar situation before. But you also, sometimes you just got to help people out. And sometimes it'll be worth the risk versus the reward. This guy said it himself that he thinks that Ajit would be a good fit for this position, or at least a couple positions at his job. So if he turned out really well and wasn't an HR problem, it would have actually had made you look better than you did in the first place, instead of having this situation where people think you're a jerk for not wanting to refer one of your friend's friends to a job that he's perfectly qualified for. Like I said, this guy was considered the jerk in this situation, and I do understand both sides of this argument, but I do tend to agree that he was kind of being a jerk here. Yeah, by the way, I hope my microphone quality is sounding a little bit better. I'm messing around with some stuff right now, and I'm hoping it sounds better than my first video because I know it was kind of rough. But yeah, let's hop into this next story. Am I overreacting that my husband's mom does my laundry every time she visits? She visits about once a month, stays 3 to 4 days. Every single visit, on day 2, she goes into our laundry room while I'm at work and does whatever's in the hamper. She folds it, she puts it away in the right drawers, she knows where everything goes because she has been doing this for 4 years. I have asked her to stop 6 different times, polite at first, then less polite. Last time, I straight up said, please do not touch our laundry. She laughed and said, oh honey, I just like helping. Then she did it again the next morning. My husband thinks I'm overreacting because she's just being nice and her love language is act of service. I think the love language thing stops mattering when the recipient says no 6 times. I was on my phone in bed last night paying grand prize and realized she was touched every piece of my underwear I own around 48 times. I have never once wanted this and she has been told multiple times. She's coming over this weekend, so I put a small lock on the laundry room door yesterday. My husband saw it and said, "You're really doing this now? But a woman just needs her privacy." Am I overreacting? No, I no, I don't think you're overreacting in this situation. This is just kind of weird and an invasion of privacy. It would be one thing if you asked the mother-in-law to help because she's over so often. And let's talk about that because once a month for 3 to 4 days is a lot of time for your in-laws to come spend the night. And it's kind of weird, or at least I think it's kind of weird. But yeah, it would kind of make sense if you ask someone to help around the house if they're staying over that often. But you are deliberately asking them to stop every single time they do it. So it gets to a point whenever you just feel like you're being disrespected in your own house. And it's weird because you would think the husband would want his wife to be happy in this. Whenever your mom is doing something weird in yours and your wife's house and your wife is uncomfortable, you kind of just need to suck it up and ask your mom to stop doing it because it's not just your house, it's your wife's house too. And sometimes you need to stick up for your house and what's in it. But personally, I don't think they're overreacting. I can understand why the husband thinks the wife is because a lock on your laundry room door is kind of maybe an escalation of things. I think the easier solution, someone said in the comments, was just to do your laundry the day before she comes over and don't let her into the laundry room or don't leave laundry at all. But that also does suck because you shouldn't have to do your laundry or time your laundry around doing it because you don't want someone else to do it for you. But overall, I think this is just a really weird situation, and I understand why OP would put a lock on their laundry room door. So I don't think they're overreacting, and I hope this just gets resolved soon. I broke into a college classroom at night and stole the test. I won't say exactly what class it was, but I had a class that involved both math and physics. The guy teaching the class was an okay guy, but he was a horrible teacher. He didn't explain the concept very well, and even worse than his teaching was the way he made up the test. They were always full of errors. The first few tests I took in the class, I actually got a much lower grade than I typically score on tests because I spent so much time trying to figure out why I couldn't seem to get the right results for several of my answers, and I didn't finish all the questions on the test because I ran out of time. The teacher acknowledged that he made a few mistakes on the test, but he didn't change my grade or give me extra time to finish. So for the last test of the semester, the final, which was the test that counted the most towards our grade, I broke into the classroom and stole the test out of the desk at the front of the classroom where I knew he had stored it. I opened the locked classroom door with a butter knife at night. I left the classroom, made a copy of the test, and then returned and put it back. The test was the next day. I stayed up that night going through the test, and sure enough, it was full of mistakes. The next day, I not only gave all the right answers that I knew how to do it anyway, but I also corrected every single mistake in the test. I wrote things like, "I believe this is what you meant to ask on the question, but didn't, and if you had asked the question the correct way, then this would be the correct answer. Otherwise, the question actually has no correct answer." Or, "There's no way to give a correct answer for this question because the table that you presented was incorrect in these two values, but if you had these other values which would have made more sense, then this could have been the answer." The next class after the test, the teacher asked to speak with me and said that he was sorry that the test had so many mistakes on it and that he would be sure to be more careful when making up tests in the future and complimenting me on correcting his work and gave me extra credit. I got a perfect grade for that class. So OP made an update and an edit on this post because a lot of people were accusing them of this story being fake. So this part is the update. I'm just going to add a comment here that it was unusual for professors to keep their tests in the classroom desks. There really were desks ahead of my classrooms for the professors to use, and I don't understand why some people think that's strange. And it was so common for professors to keep class-related materials in those desks, but I can't remember any of the other professors keeping their future desks in those desks. It kind of seems like a lazy and incompetent thing to do, right? Well, guess what? That's exactly what this guy was, lazy and incompetent. That's why his tests were riddled with errors. If rather than telling the story as it actually happened, my entire goal was to tell the most believable story possible, then I could have easily just changed that detail in the story and said that I broke into the professor's personal office in order to steal the test. But that's not what actually happened, and everything in this story is true. Yeah, like I said, a lot of people are saying the story is fake, but I'm kind of inclined to believe that it did happen because college professors sometimes just make some really like silly mistakes and errors on their part. I dropped out of college personally, but whenever I was going to college, I had one class where we were learning how to use business applications on our computer. It was mostly like Office 360. And one of the things that we had was an Excel contest where we had to follow a guide. And I'm going to be so real with you. In this class, I did not do a single thing. But the reward for this contest was a was a mug that said "freak in the sheets," and so I had to get it. And the guide was very complicated, and I had no idea what I was doing. And whenever I turned in mine, it was very far off from the actual test results. But either no one else entered into this contest or everyone else was very wrong, because at the end of the day, I got that freak in the sheet mugs and I have it still. It's my favorite mug that I own by far. The whole point of that story is to say that professors in college just, they be making some silly mistakes. So I believe 100% that this professor just made the wrong test answers. The worst part about this story, or at least in my opinion, is that even though the professor knew that he was the one making the mistakes on the test and didn't give OP and what I'm assuming is the rest of the class extra credit, that just seems like something that would lose your teaching's license. Because if you're the one making the mistake and you're just punishing your students for not knowing when to correct your own errors, then I just don't think you should be a professor, not even a teacher at high school or in like grade school. You just should not be a uni professor. But yeah, this story just has me wondering if anyone else has any weird stories about their teachers or professors, because I just feel like a lot of them do some really not so smart stuff. Am I overreacting about my coworker vaping in the back? I've been at the same job for over a year, and my coworker has been here for 6 months tops. She's an alright worker and does what needs to be done when asked, tends to be on her phone a lot though. I'm a shift lead and she's a general worker at my job, meaning that I have authority over her despite her being in her late 20s and me not being in my 20s yet. There's almost never a store manager on when it's closing shifts, so that puts me at the highest in the chain of command on the clock. This coworker tends to vape a lot on the clock. This doesn't really bother me as a general concept, however she vapes indoors in the back of house. I have asked her to take it outside if she feels as though she must absolutely vape. She did this maybe 2 shifts we shared before I caught her vaping indoors in the back after not completing a task she had started. This resulted in chemicals being left out in the customer bathroom open to the public. This is a huge no-no where I work because it opens the doors to so many lawsuits and issues. I had to finish a task for her because I didn't know where she was at the time. I didn't confront her about vaping, but I was instantly irritated due to her obvious attempt at hiding it from me when I walked to the back. When she went to the back, I messaged my manager about what was going on since it was a reoccurring issue. However, I feel like I'm overreacting because, I don't know, I feel bad for snitching, but if she ignores me when I'm literally her boss when I'm on shift, I'm not sure what else to do. Man, this doesn't even seem like vaping is the issue in this situation. The issue seems to be that this coworker just doesn't do their job and instead does something they're not supposed to do, vaping. So to me, that's the biggest issue here. I don't think OP is overreacting by texting their manager, because if they're not listening to OP, then they might as well get the next person involved. If workers are vaping in the store, there are plenty of jobs that will just fire you on the spot. No questions asked, they'll just fire you. I know this because I've worked at places where they will do things like that. Usually it's not just because you're vaping, it's usually if you get caught doing that and you're also just generally not a good worker, that's whenever they want to just pull the trigger on you and fire you. But typically this behavior is not tolerated in most jobs. I'm assuming this is a food service job because of the terminology in back of house. So this can cause actual health concerns. If someone's smoking right next to a fryer or a stove, that vape is getting onto the food, that can become like an actual health violation concern. So personally, I would probably do something similar to this, especially if they're trying to hide it from me whenever I've already told them to stop. I would probably have talked to my manager as well. Am I overreacting for publicly shaming my neighbor after they moved and left their dog behind? I'm a 32-year-old female. I live in a rental neighborhood where people come and go pretty often. About a month ago, my next door neighbors moved out, and I didn't know them very well, just the usual wave in the driveway type of relationship. They had a medium sized dog that I'd see in their backyard all the time, friendly, always wagging its tail through the fence. The week they were packing up, I noticed the dog outside more than usual. I assumed they were just busy. Moving day came, the truck left, their cars left. By that evening, the house was empty. The dog was still there. At first, I thought maybe that someone was coming back, but the next morning, the dog was still in the yard, whining and scratching at the back door. No food bowl in sight, no water that I could see, and it was over 85 degrees. I knocked on the door, no answer. I called the property manager straight to voicemail. I waited most of the day hoping this was some horrible misunderstanding, but it wasn't. By the second night, I'd had enough. I started leaving food and water through the fence and called animal control. They didn't come until the next afternoon, and the dog had been alone for almost 48 hours at that point. While I was waiting for animal control, I posted it in our neighborhood group asking if anyone had contact information for the former tenants because they left their dog behind. I didn't name call, but I made very clear what had happened and that it was unacceptable. Someone found the former owner's profile and started commenting. It turned into a pile-on fast. A few people were calling them monsters and worse. Later that evening, I got a message from the former owner. She claimed she had arranged for her cousin to pick up the dog and that there was a miscommunication. She said I'd humiliated her publicly and that now she was getting harassment. Maybe there was supposed to be a pickup, but if you're moving across state lines, why would you leave your dog alone in an empty house for 2 days with no visible food or water? Animal control ended up taking the dog to a local rescue. I've since found out the cousin never existed. Now, some of the neighbors are saying I should have handled it privately instead of posting publicly because it escalated things. They think I contributed to the online harassment. I don't regret calling animal control. I would do that again in a heartbeat. But I'm wondering if I went too far by posting it online and setting off the mob. Did I overreact for publicly calling them out instead of just quietly reporting it? So my immediate verdict is not overreacting. I think being angry about the situation is very reasonable, and the pretty obvious thing to do is just be upset about this. Generally I wouldn't recommend publicly posting about this, and I would have done it privately. But whenever you see a dog waiting outside for someone to come pick it up for 48 hours, it's kind of hard not to immediately want to take action. And usually the easiest way would just to be to ask your neighborhood group if anyone knows who left their dog out. And honestly, it's hard to even feel bad for the neighbor after they've been getting harassed, because you shouldn't just leave your dog out like that. Obviously, people are going to get upset at you, especially after you tried lying about having a cousin coming to get your dog. Because that makes you wonder, what was the plan for the dog? If you're going to abandon a dog like that, there are many better ways to do it. Giving your dog to an adoption center or a rescue would be the most ideal situation. But locking it in your backyard is just obviously the worst thing to do. All of the comments are saying that the OP did the right thing here, and ultimately I can't disagree. Of course, it kind of sucks that this person was getting harassed, but I feel like that's a small price to pay whenever you left a dog to just fend for itself in a place where it didn't have access to food or water. So if they didn't want to be harassed, I would recommend next time going through the proper channels of getting rid of a dog instead of just leaving it in your backyard. Am I the jerk for refusing to sign off on 4 volunteer hours for a teen who was only there for less than an hour? We had a community cleanup in our neighborhood on last Saturday near the park. Nothing major, just picking up some trash. I was hoping they're out as a volunteer. A lot of teens came to earn volunteer hours for school. Rule was simple: you show up, sign in, do the work, and at the end, I sign a sheet with the actual time. One guy showed up with his mom around 9:15. Clean started at 9. He signed in, grabbed gloves and a trash bag, took a couple of photos by the supplies table, and headed toward the trail. About 20 minutes later, I noticed he wasn't in any of the groups. I didn't go looking for him because I'm not a babysitter, just thought maybe he was with another team. But all the groups were handing in their bags to me, and I didn't see him again. Around 12:30, when we were already wrapping up, he showed up again with an iced coffee in his hand. His mom came up to me with a school form and asked me to sign for 4 hours. I told her I couldn't. According to what I saw, he was there for less than an hour. I agreed to sign for 45 minutes or 1 hour maximum, but not 4. She immediately got tense and said he was around and helping somewhere further down the trail. I said if that one of the team leads confirm it, I signed for more, but I couldn't do it without that. She lowered her voice and said he needed those hours for a school requirement, otherwise he'd be in trouble. I said it felt strange to me to sign for something that didn't happen. Guy stood there silently, didn't say anything, and was staring at his phone. After his mom said I was humiliating him in public although there was no people, I replied that I wasn't calling him lazy or anything like that. I just wouldn't sign for 4 hours if he hadn't actually done the work. I ended up signing for 1 hour and I saw him and his mom angrily leave the park. Now, I'm not sure about my decision and I even find myself to be a bit cruel, but it seems to me that volunteer hours will lose their meaning if all would show up, take a picture, and ask parents to ask others to sign the paper. Am I the jerk here? I don't know, man. This just seems like the reasonable thing to do here. The school most likely just had a requirement to get volunteer hours for whatever reason. And just going to a place and showing up is not volunteering. The whole purpose of having volunteer hours at a school is to show a kid what a community is meant to be like and also to get like work experience. So to have this kid show up and do literally nothing and then only be there for like an hour and expect to get 4 hours is kind of ridiculous. What's more ridiculous to me is the fact that this mom expected that to work. The kid wasn't even there for an hour, and she wanted the OP to sign off for 4 hours, even though the kid obviously didn't do anything. I think it's kind of crazy that this mom is just enabling this kid's behavior because that's going to lead into very bad habits as this kid gets older. And just FYI, OP was deemed not the jerk here because obviously, right? They did the right thing. They did exactly what they were told to do, and they stood by their own morals and didn't just allow someone to pressure them into changing their mind. I have a soul crushingly boring but well paying job, and it's destroying me mentally. I want to preface and say this is not a humble brag. I'm completely aware of how privileged and whiny I sound. I work at a niche job. I'm going to attempt not to dox myself, but I describe the situation. I got out of the military and began doing contract work that is the same job I did while I was in the military. I have no degree and few transferable skills to civilian work. The job is decently stable though. This is to say, my only way out is a full pivot into something unrelated. I work in an office with flexible hours and 20 days of paid time off annually. I make right at the 100K mark in an MCOL area and have a pretty good retirement plan. My medical is expensive but high quality. My work environment could not be more chill on most fronts. As a slight negative, I'm basically maxed out on salary. This is a weird position where I'm being paid above the typical non-college grad, but because they know I have a little bit to no competition to leave, the pay is stagnant from here. Here's where my complaining begins though. It could not be more boring and slow-paced. Imagine you are sitting in the DMV for 8 hours a day. I have work to do, and while it's technical, it's not exciting. I also don't have any goal markers. It's basically endless data for me to analyze in perpetuity. I talk to no customers, I have almost no meetings. It's more than pure data entry, but it's basically data entry with a technical aspect. I sit in my cubicle just chugging away all day, every single day. I cannot have my phone during the workday, and I will never be able to work from home, so I am in the office. The only actual negative is we have a manager right now who is pretty strict about being on non-work related websites and talking too much. So the expectation is to be on the work server and he routinely patrols to make sure that's the case. I try to make the best of my situation by listening to music, podcasts, video essays, but at this point I'm exhausted a lot of that. I want to be a creative writer, so I spend some time each day writing, but I have to be very covert to hide that I'm not working. I know people would kill for a job like this, but after doing this for 5 years, I'm feeling a lot of dread. It is so boring. I don't want something more impactful or anything, just something more stimulating. The boredom is mind-numbing. I know there are plenty of people with monotonous, boring jobs who have worse pay and work environments than me, but I just needed to vent. Some days I miss my high school retail jobs just because I actually did things. Some days I feel like I'm actively aware of the 28,000 seconds I'm at work each day. Any pivot I would do would require such a drop in pay and benefits that it will likely never be a viable move due to the fact that I support a family with my income alone. I daydream about maybe making YouTube videos and making enough to quit my job, but I know likely I'll be making this work for another 30 years and that makes me literally feel a bit of panic. I'm gonna read one of the direct comments in this post, And it says money doesn't fix the part of you that needs to feel like you matter. And no amount of financial security will convince your brain otherwise, and it decides you're wasting away. And honestly, I feel like that kind of sums up this entire post. Money can only get you so far in life. Obviously, it can make sure that you're well fed. It can make sure you have a roof over your head. It can make sure that you're able to take care of your family and those you care about. But once your brain is just clocked out and not engaging in anything, being miserable sometimes doesn't make it worth the money. This is a very complicated situation, though, because this person isn't just by themselves. If it was just them on their own, honestly, taking a retail job would probably be the best bet here because it doesn't pay that great. But if you get decent enough hours at a retail job, you can most likely live on your own. Not easily, but it would be doable. But life happens, and sometimes you get a job that you just need to keep because you need to support yourself and your family. But it kind of sucks that it's mentally draining them. A lot of people in the comments did say that OP is in a pretty good position to follow their dreams. In a job like this, where it's just pure data entry at a desk for 8 hours a day, or however many hours a day, you have what is basically a lot of free time, a lot of spare time. And I know OP also said that they have a manager that constantly keeps you on task. But sometimes, whenever you're at work, jotting down some of your ideas will go a long way. And OP also mentioned that they want to be able to make YouTube videos. And I think that would be the best entry point into getting something like your writing across. But overall, I kind of relate to OP because just in general, most jobs kind of suck. Having to deal with management or customers or anything like that, it just makes your day drag on regardless of what it is. Not to get too meta, but it is one of the main reasons why I'm making a YouTube channel, just so I can express some creativity and just get something out there instead of just having to go to work and, stock shelves. This one's honestly just kind of short and sweet, so I thought I'd share it. Today I messed up by forgetting my car keys and going to work. I feel like such an idiot today, so I just need to share because there's no way I can tell my partner. I'm so incredibly embarrassed and I feel like my brain has been overloaded with work and other stuff. I went to work today and as usual, I arrived around 9ish. Usually, I use my keys to access my office, but because I was working in a different office today, I didn't need them. It's now almost 7 p.m. I'm about to leave when I realize I don't have my keys. I empty my bag in desperation and I can't find them. I tend to be pretty forgetful, but I don't panic quite yet because I don't always have a specific spot for my keys in my bag. At this point, I knew I probably left them in the car, so I go downstairs and it's in an open parking lot. As I approach my car, I hear my engine running and I thought, no way. My car was on for over 8 hours, just sitting idle, doors unlocked, in the parking lot, as if gas prices were not expensive enough. I mean, I have no words that failed me at this point. Hoping I didn't ruin my car since I just bought it a few months ago. I feel like we've all been there. But maybe that's just me because I relate to this so hard. I'm a very forgetful person. Every time I leave my girlfriend's house, she has to tell me if I have my phone, wallet, and keys. And if she doesn't tell me that, there is a very high chance that I will forget one of those things. So there have been multiple days where I have gotten home and woken up the next day and did not have my wallet. And it's just very inconvenient. So yeah, I very much relate to OP. But honestly, in this story, I feel like OP is lucky that no one stole their car. I'm sure since it was at a work environment that there were cameras in the parking lot. But even still, someone could have seen that it was running and just taken off with it. So it's a very good thing that that did not happen. And now, I know nothing about cars. But people in the comments are saying that if you leave your car on idle for however long, it won't affect it. So OP got lucky on both of these fronts. But the real moral of this story is to make sure you always double and triple and quadruple check if you have everything. Today, I messed up by telling my boss that I hate him. Today at work, my boss was really pissing me off. Well, he's done been pissing me off for a while now. It's the smaller things that he does now. Whenever I do a task, he always follows it up with, "Oh, but you didn't do this, and this still needs to be done, and you forgot this." Which gets on my nerves when I finish 20 plus tasks and don't get a thank you or appreciation for the hard work I do. He also often does things that makes me and others believe he fully doesn't trust us. He's a very micromanaged type of boss. I was closing tonight and he said he was going to stay later because the store's a mess and we haven't beat sales yet. I told him it's fine, we got it, like actually I truly have it. The store will be recovered and I'll do what I can to beat the sale. He looked at me like I was stupid and goes, "Oh, but the last few closings you guys forgot to take out the trash and there was a few items on the floor." This started my irritation today because he didn't recognize the fact that the whole store was completely recovered and was replenished those nights. I just said okay. Proceeded to speedrun the recovery with the help of a coworker and we got a majority of the store recovered bar one section. Closing time hits and I go to lock the door and he stops me. The conversation goes something like this. "Hey, wait. Yeah? We are 500 away from sales." "Okay. It's 8. We close at 8. "I know, but we have a duty to beat sales." "But it's 8. He stares at me like I'm stupid. "It's 8. We as leaders need to make the decisions to beat sales." "Okay, fine." I don't lock the doors and go back to recovery. Recovery's done. People finally leave the store. No one, and I mean no one, came in after 8. Not one. He comes up to me saying, "So you can see that not locking the doors didn't interrupt your schedule." I say back, "Yes, but no one came in past 8. We beat sales with who was already in the store. Therefore, we still could have locked the door." He backed off and went away. Mind you, policy does state that people should be asked to leave and doors should be locked 15 minutes after closing. I start pre-counting some tills and ask him if he's staying or not. He decides to leave because we finally don't need him in his eyes. Takes him 20 minutes to grab his stuff and go, which makes me angrier because he expects us to replenish the store, but we can't get a good head start because I'm waiting for him to leave to pull his tills out. He finally leaves, I pull the tills and go to the office to count him. On his way out, he says to a coworker who tells me everything because everyone tells me everything. That boss said, "Close like you do with me, not her," which makes me more mad because he only closes, and I went back and counted, 5 times a month, when I close 15, and the other lead takes the rest of the days. I'm mad, like super mad, at how he was speaking to me today, and I go to message my boyfriend, "Kill me, I hate this place." And excuse my language, but I feel like it's needed here. I hate bitch ass boss's name so much. Kill me. In my angry haze, I realize I sent it to my boss. I freak out and immediately go, "I messed up. I messed up so bad." One of my coworkers calls his mom for some advice because I'm at a loss for what to do. She says it's fine, there's not going to be bad consequences, I didn't threaten him at all, and I'm entitled to my opinion. If it goes to HR, I'll explain to them what happened and why I felt that way and that it was an honest mistake. I sent a message to my boss immediately after saying, "I am so sorry, that message wasn't meant for you. I'm just angry and it's my time of the month," which fueled my anger even more. I meant to message that to my boyfriend and not you. Again, I am so sorry. Next time I see him at work, I'm going to bring it up for us to speak about it. I'm going to explain it was a mistake and I was angry and why I felt that way. I don't think he'll actually listen to me because every time I go to him with the problem of me or one of my coworkers being upset about something, he doesn't listen at all. In fact, he starts inching away from me while he speaks like he'd rather be anywhere else. It kind of sounds like OP needs to start working on a new resume. And that's what the rest of the comments say as well. For not just the reason that they accidentally texted their boss something that personal and insulting, but more so because this work environment just sounds terrible. This boss doesn't sound like a good boss at all, obviously, right? Boss seems to belittle all of his employees and his lead as well, which is not a good work environment to be in. And it's obviously not the first time something like this has happened whenever OP is complaining to her boyfriend about it again. A lot of the comments are saying that there's not a lot going for staying there because this boss sucks. And on top of that, after sending a message like that to someone, I can only imagine that the work environment will get worse, especially if this person seems to be pretty petty. And I do get that finding a new job is not at all an easy thing to do, but in this situation, it would just be the best bet. Frankly, if I accidentally sent my boss something like this, I think my immediate reaction would to just quit. Just out of embarrassment, honestly. I really don't even see a point in trying to fix it, but I do hope that for OP's sake, that her conversation with her boss goes well. And if not, I hope OP finds a good paying job that has a better work environment than this. I thought we'd end this video with a lighthearted, pointless story. My neighbor's garden gnome is slowly escaping. My neighbor has this ugly little garden gnome with a red hat and a chipped nose. It used to sit right next to its porch steps, but about 2 weeks ago, I noticed it had moved slightly to the right. I thought maybe a stray cat knocked it over or the wind did it, but the next morning it was another few inches away. This has been happening every single day since then. Someone is manually migrating this thing across the lawn in 10 centimeter increments. I have started tracking its progress like it's a NASA rover mission. It is currently about 5 feet away from where it started and is heading straight for the driveway. I tried to stay awake a few nights ago to see who was doing it, but I fell asleep around 2 a.m. But by 7 a.m., the garden gnome had advanced again. It is like a low-budget horror movie, but without any of the actual horror. Just a very slow piece of ceramic moving through the grass. The best part is that my neighbor seems completely oblivious. He is out there every weekend mowing the lawn, and he just pushes the mower around the gnome wherever it happens to be that day. He does not seem to realize that his lawn decoration has traveled farther in 2 weeks than most people do on a treadmill. I'm curious to see what happens when it finally hits the concrete. Maybe it will start climbing the fence or just disappear into the bushes. I have absolutely no stake in this, but it is currently the most interesting part of my morning routine. Honestly, I hate to break it to OP, but that garden gnome is alive, and it is going towards them. What a silly part of just living in a neighborhood. Just having someone move a gnome every morning a couple of centimeters. I'm really hoping we get an update on this one because I want to know what happens when it reaches the fence. I want it to either climb or start moving somewhere else. The fact that the neighbor is completely oblivious to this just kind of makes me think that maybe they're the ones moving it. And if that is the case, and no one else has caught on to the fact that the neighbor is moving it, that just makes this even better. It's already a funny story to begin with, so to think that no one knows who's doing it is the best thing ever. I wonder how this will end. If it will end with the OP figuring out who's the one moving it, or if it will end with the gnome just like ascending to somewhere, wherever it's going. Do y'all have any little things that just like keep y'all going? For me personally, when I'm at work, it's just seeing if there are certain regulars that come in. Not so much because I love them or anything, but it's just very interesting whenever I'm able to recognize certain faces, especially whenever some people are in stores like all the time. You'll see it a lot where a lot of older people just like seemingly have nothing else to do, so they just go to stores. Which, that makes sense. But yeah, do y'all have anything like this where it's just like little things that keep y'all going? Like maybe someone in your neighborhood is just moving a garden gnome 10 centimeters every day. Alright, so we're doing this outro while I'm popping this bad. Thank you again for watching this video, especially if you made it all the way through. I'm hoping my audio sounds a lot better than my first video did. I know that the audio quality in that video was especially rough. I had a few things wrong with my microphone settings. Just for context, I have a Blue Yeti Nano, and I had the drivers installed, but Blue Yeti has this thing where it allows you to choose presets for your microphone. And honestly, there's nice little filters, and they're pretty good if you're just doing like live, like if you're in a voice call or something. But for recorded audio, it just sounds really bad whenever you're trying to mix it in with other filters. So that's the main reason why my first video sounded pretty rough. But I figured some things out. I turned all of those settings off, and I also figured out certain EQ filters, but that's kind of just semantics. I do want to get some more equipment. I want to get a pop filter for my microphone because that's something else I'm noticing in my audio right now. But yeah, let me know if there's anything that y'all think I should work on in terms of audio. I'm still trying to get a little bit more comfortable on a microphone. But I think that will just come with me doing it. This is only my second video that I've done long form anyway. I've done a bunch of shorts before and other animation videos in the past, but I just haven't done much videos like this where it's literally just me talking and reading. So hopefully I get a little bit more comfortable with that. But yeah, man, like I said, I really do appreciate y'all, especially the ones who made it all the way through this. And hopefully I see y'all in the next video. If y'all did like this video, let me know what y'all liked about it. If you didn't like this video, let me know what you disliked about it, and I'll try and work on it as well. If you have the time, I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed as well. I do want to start making more YouTube videos, so hopefully I'll see y'all around. But yeah, that's it for me. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Later, y'all.